Hello, I'm Paul Mulvaney, aka PG Mulvaney. I designed and assembled and have been the principal operator of the Clare Hall live stream system for the last few months this project has been going on. And for various good reasons, we've decided that it's time to train other people to know how to use this system, in case I'm not available, as inevitably will happen, for a given performance. We'll need other operators. Right now, the Clare Hall COVID restrictions require that there only be a musician and an operator in the room simultaneously, largely because the musicians tend not to wear masks. So it's a masked operator and an unmasked musician are considered relatively safe pair of people, but they don't want 4 or 5 people in. So I can't really run training sessions while we run live streams. However, I am willing to schedule a training session with a simulated live stream at any point for any one of the various 5 or 6 people now who have volunteered to learn this technology. It's not that difficult to learn, although there's a great deal to it, and it was a bit daunting to develop and to learn how to use, because it's grossly under-documented, the systems. But once we figured out how to use them, it turns out that the actual operation comes down to just a few steps. There are basically 3 components to the live stream system. That is the camera, the computer, and YouTube. Today we will be covering the care and feeding of the Xf400 Canon brand camcorder camera that we use as our principal camera. And as you see the advantages of this camera and the simplicity of this camera, you will see why we chose this particular camera. This is the camera right behind me here, sitting on a tripod right now. This is not the tripod we use at the college. This is my own personal tripod that I've had set up in order to run some tests and indeed to write the script for using this camera. I will take this camera now off this tripod. You will see on the bottom of the camera there's a plate which has been screwed onto the bottom of the camera. Every tripod brand, every tripod model really, uses a different kind of plate. The one we use at the college is actually simpler than this one. It's this. And as you can see, it has a D-ring on the bottom. When you pull up the D-ring, you can unscrew this. This, however, this plate will always be screwed into the bottom of this. One less thing for you to worry about. It's a much easier tripod to use than this one. The one we have at the college is the much easier tripod to use. It's carbon composite, it's lightweight, it's very strong, and it's very stable. This is also strong and stable, but this is designed for still photography, really, and as such is a little more complex. Now, when you arrive at the college to do your live stream shot, the first thing you'll do is you go into the president's office and you retrieve this particular bag. It has a piece of white tape on the front. And when you open that bag, there's a cardboard box inside. So that forms our hard case. It's a cheap way of doing a hard case because hard cases are expensive. There will be this piece of foam on the back of the camera. You can remove that, of course, and there'll be some packing bubble rack on the top of it, and you remove that as well. And then you can take this out, and you'll be able to place it on the tripod, and there'll be a single set screw that puts the camera onto the tripod in a secure fashion. When we have a live shoot together, I can show you that in person. It's very, very easy. That's the easy part. Not too much more complicated than that. The next thing you want to do is you have 2 receptacles here for microphone cables. So the very next thing you're going to do is you're going to plug in your microphones, and I will show you how to plug in a microphone. Take the microphones out and you'll plug them in, and that's a knack, but not difficult. They friction fit into the shock mounts, which is just a rubber band system that floats the microphone away from the microphone stand. The microphones we use are called condenser mics, and that's as opposed to a dynamic mic. A dynamic mic is the sort of microphone that you see a rock star or a rapper carrying. They're stage microphones. Those microphones are unpowered. They don't require power, and in fact, if you try to put power into them, they'll burn out. You'll destroy them. The microphones we use, condenser microphones, require a very, very low amperage, very low power, but a 48 volt current. And that voltage drives the microphone, and if you don't turn it on, the microphone doesn't do anything. It's any more than a light bulb does. So you need to plug the microphones into the shock mounts, and then you plug the end with the holes into the microphone, and the other end, the end with the pins, goes into this receptacle on the camera. Now you want to plug that straight in. It has 3 holes and it has 3 pins. The pins go just like a triangle with the base at the bottom and the top at the top, the vertex at the top, and you go in like that. When, by the way, you're removing this cable, there is a thumb or finger clip on the bottom. You squeeze that spring clip and this will come straight out. It's a little stiff. They're always a little stiff. But when you pull it, it'll come straight out. And if you pull it one side or down or the other, you can destroy the unit. You really don't want to do that. We'll all get in trouble if we do that. So just be careful pulling it out. And that cable pretty much stays where it is. It lies on the floor. So you don't have to stow that cable away too much. You just make it neat, and that will be enough. But once you've got those 2 cables plugged in, one from the left microphone, one from the right microphone, doesn't really matter which side you plug them in, because the computer circuitry will do all the separation for us. Once you've plugged those in, you're going to then look at the opposite side of the camera handle. This is the camera handle. This is the camera. And the Xf400 comes with its own little mixer. Now it has volume controls to control each channel up here, but we're not going to use those. We found that the best sound quality that we get is when we turn those to automatic. So you set these top 2 controls to A. The other side is M for manual. This is A for automatic. We're going to leave those on A for automatic. The next one down, we're going to indicate that we're using input 1 and input 2. There are internal microphones. We're not using those. You could use those very easily if all you were doing was camcording, say, a lecture somewhere. There's even a mount for a single microphone if you want to be a news reporter and shoot news. Then there's a tendency to use a gun microphone up here, which is very directional. But that's all background. What we're using are these 2 condenser microphones, and we're going to control them by setting that second control to input 1 and input 2, and then the bottom ones we're going to turn on the 48 volt control voltage. So we'll have the entire setup here will be left, right, right. Okay? Left, right, right. So you set those controls so that they are left, right, right. And then your audio is all set and ready to go. On the right side of the camera, there's a wrist strap. We're not going to be using that because we're not hand holding. We've got a tripod mount. But in front of the wrist strap, there is a brown-orange piece of tape. That is going to indicate where you put in the data cable. We have audio coming in. We're going to have a video coming in. We need to send that out to the computer. To do that, we're going to use a kind of HDMI cable. An HDMI cable, high definition multimedia interface, sounds very science fiction, but an HDMI cable is the cable that connects your TV set to your cable box. It's nothing more romantic than that. This is a mini HDMI, and this end of the mini HDMI is going to go in when you lift this flap up underneath the orange tape. You're going to lift that flap up, and there is a receptacle for this right here on the upper left side of that. You'll notice that this cable is also marked with the same color tape so that you can't forget it. There you go. That goes in there. At the other end of this is HDMI. Now the trick is, every HDMI on every laptop is an HDMI out, so you can connect it to a screen. We need to get an HDMI signal into the computer. So in order to do that, we have what is known as a capture card. That term goes back to gaming, which was usually done when they were live streaming games on a tower computer designed for gameplay. You've seen those, if you don't own one. This is called a capture card, even though it doesn't look like a capture. What it really is an adapter that adapts that HDMI signal to a standard USB signal so that we can put it into the Lenovo laptop that we use. And the Lenovo laptop is in the box, but we'll talk about that next week. It's in a computer box, and you can bring that into the studio as well. And this will be plugged right into the USB on the upper left-hand side of the Lenovo. So we'll just call this the CamLink cable. That you don't want to take this off here. You don't want to get it lost, and you don't want to break it, so be careful of it. It gets a little warm while it's running, but not too bad, and it might not get warm at all. But that's normal. But in any case, the CamLink is a very good quality capture card, and it was a small investment. The college made a big investment in this camera, so we want to be very careful of the camera. Now we have data coming in and out of the camera. That's great. What we need now is to power the camera. The camera has a battery pack on the back, but we want to power the camera because we don't know how long this concert will be, and we don't know how strong the battery might be at a given moment. So we're going to run the power strip into the flap on the back of the camera next to the cubicle battery. There's a strip here that's marked power. I thought that would be pretty literal. And the power brick usually, in fact, lives on the floor. If it isn't, it'll be in the box with the camera. Standard 3-prong socket that plugs into the power strip that's on the floor, and then the power brick is live at that point. When you turn on the power strip, which it probably is on at that point, take this power plug and plug it into here at the bottom of the camera. But we haven't turned the camera on yet. Now there's a little trick to turning on the power switch, and that is to know that it is a 3-position power switch. Why they designed it this way, I don't know. Canon did a great job with this camera, but I find this a little bit annoying. If you set the power switch into the back position, the power switch turns on the media. That is to say, it powers the memory inside, the memory chips inside the camera, and the result of that is that you could say download or do whatever you need to do to a file, delete a file, whatever, on the memory itself. But it can also run. It doesn't turn on the battery per se. And if you take out the battery, the power strip, I should say, the power cord, and leave the battery running, the battery will run down, which is not necessarily a thing to be desired. It's important to know that the off position for this 3-pole switch is in the middle, and the on position is right there. You can see it's running on battery now. The lights come on. You can find that power switch very easily because I've marked it with a big red arrow on the side. So look for the big red arrow, and there it is. So now you have input, input, output, but you can't see anything. Why can't you see anything? Because there's no light coming into the camera. The lens cover's on, the lens cap's on. In this case, you don't have to unscrew a lens cap or pinch it off as you do with most cameras. In this case, you have a nifty built-in lens cap. This is very cool, I think. And you just throw this switch into the down position, and you'll see that it opens up the lens, just like that. Now, you can see if you can look. And in order to look through the camera, you pull this eyepiece out and you pull it up. Why do you pull it up? Because in most cases, since we're not shooting a movie here, in most cases, this will not be on a tripod so high up that you're going to be looking like that. You'll probably be looking almost at waist level, and so you'll want to lean down and be able to look into the eyepiece. There is a focusing mechanism, a slider, on the bottom of the eyepiece. That is technically known as a diopter. And what it does is it compensates for your own eyesight. You can get that to be crystal clear, but it does not focus the camera. It only focuses the eyepiece. The camera autofocuses. So that's an important thing to know, that the camera will autofocus. Now, that's actually a little hard to use and a little hard to read all the information on it. So, as is the case with most modern cameras, it has a monitor screen that opens out. And as you can see, it opens out like that. It does not open any further than 90 degrees to the camera. Please do not try to push it around the other way or do anything with it like that. It does not flip up, it does not flip down. However, it does rotate. And that means you could actually rotate it that far if you were doing some sort of selfie shot. But more importantly, you can rotate it to about that position, and then you can use this very easily as a second monitor. So you have a tight monitor in here and a monitor here, and you can frame your shot that way. You can use either the eyepiece or the monitor to frame your shot. There's a rocker switch here, which is, it can go back or forth. And there's a small one up here in case you're doing a handheld shot, but we're not doing handheld shots. We're going to use this rocker switch on the side. At least I do most of the time, but you can use either one. And what you use that for is to frame the shot. You want to make sure that you're not cutting off the top of the musician's head, or you have if everything is too far or you're pointed in the wrong direction, you'll adjust the ball joint on the tripod, which will just be a matter of loosening the ball joint with the set screw on the tripod and then moving that round joint in any direction you want. But once you've got it that way, you'll want to zoom in or zoom out until it's a comfortable frame where you don't have necessarily the mics and the lights in the shot, if that can be avoided. Where you can get all the musicians who are playing. You might have more than one musician, or you want to focus in on one musician. You can do that with that rocker switch. At that point, you should either very carefully study this monitor, or you should look through here. I like to look through here for this because I'm an old still photographer. You want to see everything in the film. You want to look at everything in the frame, but you want to see everything in the frame. In other words, take a moment to notice every single object that's in the frame. Do you want that object in the frame? This is your one chance at it. You can't go back and take a second take and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, there was light coming through the window," or "I'm sorry, there was that that pail sitting over in the corner. No. Make sure you have a clear field. Make sure this is a work of art that you are ready to present on behalf of the college to the world. So that's what you're going to do when you look through here and here. You are a cinematographer at this point, as well as a sound engineer. You're going to be busy. But as you can see, there's not too much to do. You plug in things, you turn it on, and you take a good look. It's not too much more complicated than that. So you run your video then, and at the end of your video, you basically undo everything you've done. Now, there's one trick. There's a red button up here, and somewhere else on the camera. I forget where. I'll use that one. There's this red button up here, and if you push that, it records while you're videoing. It records inside the camera. That will not interfere, we've discovered, in any way with what is going on with the YouTube presentation. So if somebody wants you to, or if you want to, make a simultaneous recording, that can be useful for troubleshooting. If we have a problem with YouTube, we can see what the problems were on our end and what the problem was on the YouTube end. It is also possible, and we'll get into this next week, to record on the computer, but that has the capability of slowing the computer down, and then you could land up with problems at the YouTube end. So if we're going to make a local recording, we want to do it in the camera, and when you do that, you just press the button and it starts to record. Press it a couple of minutes before you start the performance, because it tends to cut the beginning of the performance off. It takes a moment to get going. And then press it again when you're done, because you don't want it to just run and run and run. Especially if you accidentally shove that to media, it might run and run and run. You want to make sure that the recording is off at that point. But in any case, whether you're running the recording or not, at that point you want to turn the unit off and fold it up and remove the data cable and remove with the little levers that I've shown you. Here they are. Remove the microphone cords. Put this away. Pack it up the way it was. Put the styrofoam over this end. The lens, the lens cover. Don't forget to close the lens cover, and the rubber lens guard will protect this end of the lens. So this end of the camera. And at that point, you are done with the camera. Now, that's all you need to know about the camera. There's a lot more to the camera. There are hundreds of functions on this camera, but all those functions will be preset for you. When you come in, that's all you need to do. You plug it in, you turn it on, you run it. When you're done, you turn it off, you unplug it, you put it away. Nothing could be simpler. And nonetheless, I am sending you a 12-paragraph, 2 or 3 page document along with this URL. You received that. So you could watch this video, but you can also read along with what we are doing. It's not very hard to do. No heavy lifting, as I like to say. And next week, it's a little more challenging. We'll be dealing with the software. And there are 1,000 things you can do with that software. But we're going to ask it to do the very minimum. And as such, there will only be a few things you need to know about the software. And anything that can go wrong, I'll teach you at least what has gone wrong so far. I'll teach you how to quickly correct that. So if you see, oh, the video is doing this, we're not getting audio, or I can't see the controls for the video, or whatever is the problem, you'll be able to correct that in the software very quickly. But the camera is much easier to use. And frankly, the YouTube software at the other end is pretty easy to use. So the complicated thing will be next week, but it's not particularly complicated. So thank you very much for volunteering, and I hope that when we get together, you're actually going to enjoy learning this technology. It is a technology in its infancy, and yet I think if you learn how to broadcast over the web, that's going to be a skill set that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And Clare Hall is going to be richer for it, because we're going to have more operators for more live streams. Music, speech, whatever the arts are. And we'll be doing that, not just during the COVID pandemic, but afterwards as well. Thanks again for your interest, and I'll see you next week. Bye.